You got to be mentally strong and have confidence if you want to play your best game, play your A game. Because if I would always find myself, if I wasn't confident, then that's when I would be missing the passes, or that's when I would be making turnovers because I'm gripping the stick too tight. And you just got to be loose. You got to have fun. You got to mess around. And I think that's where the mental side comes into play.
That was former Spokane Chief, current member of the AHL's Providence Bruins, and a newly signed player to a pro contract with the NHL's Boston Bruins, Hlinka Toporowski. And you are listening to the Up My Hockey podcast with Jason Podolak. Just watch me now. Welcome to Up My Hockey with Jason Podolak, where we deconstruct the NHL journey, discuss what it takes to make it, and have a few laughs along the way. I'm your host, Jason Podolak, a 31st overall draft pick who played 41 NHL games, but thought he was destined for 1,000. Learn from my story and those of my guests. This is a hockey podcast about reaching your potential. Hey there, welcome back, or welcome to the Up My Hockey podcast with Jason Podolak. I am Jason Podolak, your host, and today we are doing episode 115. And I'm lucky to say that we are talking with Hlinka Toporowski. Hlinka Toporowski is a current player. I don't always have access to current players, so this was special for me. And it was also special because everything about my guest, Hlinka Toporowski, is worth talking about. Especially when you take it in the context of what Up My Hockey is and what it's all about. Luke is somebody that has wanted to be an NHL player from the time he can remember. He was born into a hockey family, a dad that played pro hockey and uncles that played pro hockey. And yeah, that's what he wanted to do. He found that he was pretty good at it and he wanted to be a player. And his road to being a player started off maybe relatively easy, as he was one of the better players in his area and was able to make the AAA teams and be one of the star players on the AAA teams. But then it got a little bit rocky for him, not in the sense of his ability to play as a 16-year-old in the WHL, his ability to be drafted 8th overall in the WHL draft, but more about his journey to pro hockey, not getting drafted to the NHL level, his first year of eligibility, his second year, his third year, after seasons that some would have said that he should have been drafted, not playing as an overage in the WHL level, not signing an NHL deal after a successful overage season and signing an AHL contract, and now just signing his NHL deal with the Boston Bruins of 2 years. So what an awesome story. I always talk about people having their own path, their own way to make their dreams come true. And I don't think Luke would have probably drawn it up the way that it's gone for him if he would have done it at 13 or 14 or 15 years old. But it's Luke's story and it's Luke's way. And I don't think he would have changed it for anything. You know, as you'll hear in the discussion, I mean, his draft day in his 17-year-old season, his NHL day, is something that has stuck with him, being passed over with a house full of people, expecting yourself to go, having all the reports and feedback say that he was going to go in between the 3rd and 5th rounds and then being passed over. That has been fuel for him. That has pushed him forward. That has put him to where he is right now. And I'm sure that's helped shaped himself as a man and as a young professional in his habits and how he recognizes and appreciates things and his gratitude towards the sport and maybe the fire in his belly to continue to get better and to continue to prove people wrong. I just love it. So we talk about all that stuff in this episode. We talk about the psychology of the sport. We talk about how mindset plays a factor, the difference between the physical and the mental parts of the game. And I ask Luke point blank. I'm like, well, what do you think the split is? How much of the game is mental? How much do you think is physical? Get a really interesting answer there. We talk about confidence a lot. He talks about confidence and how to gain it and how to keep it and what what an interesting battle it is. And it's just a really fantastic, really honest, really transparent interview with a guy who is currently living the life, right? He's living that dream. He's in it right now. It's not looking back. It's not a story as he remembers. It's what is happening for him right now in the moment. The battle for the pro contract, the being the AHL player and fighting for ice time with guys who have NHL deals, the junior player that had been passed over 3 times and had to ask for a trade in his final season of eligibility of junior to get that contract that he wanted, so desperately wanted to go be a pro player. Like, he's doing it as we speak. And I think he's an awesome representation of just where the game's at. You know what I mean? What a mature perspective from a young man who's 22 and the stuff that he's been through and the experience that he's gained. And I just really enjoyed the conversation. I didn't know Luke at all prior to this discussion. I barely even knew his dad, to be honest. And his dad, we talk about in this interview as well, Kerry Toporowski, an absolute legend of like WHL lore, with his 505 minutes and penalties in one season. He wore number 17 for the Spokane Chiefs. I knew him, and we have a commonality of all being Spokane Chiefs, but I reached out to Kerry when he celebrated Luke's signing, and I said, hey, do you think Luke would want to come on the podcast? I'd love to chat with him. So he got me in touch with Luke. Luke was gracious enough to say yes to somebody that he's never met before, and it was just a fantastic conversation. I felt like it went along really well, and I think that you guys are going to really appreciate just like the currentness. I mean, the how relevant it is in so many aspects. So I guess I will just pass the torch now over to our conversation with Luke. He ended up hanging out for 1:20 or an hour and 20. I apologize, Luke, if you are listening to this. I did say we're going to do a hard stop at an hour, but geez, the conversation was just flowing so well. We pushed the boundaries a little bit, and he didn't even give me crap for it. So thank you for doing that. And for those of you, it's not a big deal at all. Generally, there's not too many swear words, and there's really not in this one. But I think the F-bomb is dropped a couple times in this episode. Maybe SHIT is said once. So anyways, not a big deal, but if you are sensitive to language, if you have super young people in your car, it might come up. So you can earmuff it if you need to. But without further ado, I bring you my awesome conversation with current Boston Bruin, newly signed Boston Bruin contract, Luke Toporowski. Luke, first of all, welcome to the podcast.
I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, great to have you. And for those who have been listening to me for a while, they know that I played for the Chiefs. So that's definitely been brought up in past episodes. Your dad, I'm not sure if he has or hasn't, but he should have been brought up in past episodes. So we have that connection. I'm sure we'll talk about that. But you yourself spend a bunch of time in Spokane. So I love the connection that we have there. And that's one of the reasons that I think that your story is so fun too, with what you've accomplished here lately. So so let's maybe start with the Spokane connection, shall we?
Sounds good to me. It's
okay, perfect. Talking. Was you? I'm going to start off just more or less with like what's going on in my house. So like I'm a few years behind your old man. I actually came in, and for those listening, I wore his dad's number. So Kerry Toporowski was a legend in Spokane, to say the least, and was remembered much differently than I was, because I was this goal scorer and Kerry found his way to the penalty box a lot. But he has some records that'll never be touched. But he wore 17, and they gave me 17, which I thought was interesting. But I always loved 17 since. I got the tattoo on my leg. But regardless of that, you coming up now, or now you've been through that process, did you want to play WHL? And if so, was playing for Spokane something that you wanted to do?
I think that's the only thing I wanted to do. Just playing minor hockey, and my grandparents live out here. So playing minor hockey, I would always come out like in the summertime or during like spring break and stuff like that, and would always go to Chiefs games. And my dad played for the Chiefs. My uncle played for the Chiefs. My uncle on my mom's side is the president of the Chiefs. We're just a Chief family. So, I mean, when the conversation started coming about NCAA or WHL or Spokane Chiefs, whatever it was always just a Chiefs. So it didn't matter. Like even during the WHL draft, I kind of had a sense that I was going to Spokane, but if that wasn't the case, me and my agent made sure to tell every other WHL team, like, he's not coming. If it's not Spokane, he's not coming. So I got accepted to the WHL because I was technically OHL territory. And yeah, I mean, I got drafted to Spokane, and the rest is history. I had a great 4.5 years here. So
that's awesome.
I mean, it was a dream come true to me.
So you say here, maybe we should touch on that because you're actually sitting at a kitchen in Spokane. So maybe just tie that in right now.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, my grandparents live here. My cousins live here. So when I actually got drafted here and I was 16, my brother was playing here at the time. We were billeting with my grandparents. So it made that transition so much easier because, as you probably know, moving away at a young age or as a teenager, it's pretty tough. But that made it so much easier. And then my mom happened to move out here 2 years ago. So she's out here. And in the summer times, I like to be out here just because, I mean, hockey's not incredibly big in Iowa. So it makes it tough to train or tough to be around a solid group of pros in that sense to compete with and better my game in the summertime. So being out here, I mean, and you know the city of Spokane, it's so beautiful, and I mean that just adds to it. So yeah, it's a great spot. We're on the South Hill, so it's pretty nice.
So I want to get back to all that, but I will just add on what you said with Quad City there. So I read, I think it was something that your dad posted on social, that you were the first ever player from Quad Cities to sign an NHL deal. Is that true?
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, hopefully there's more to follow now. I mean, that would be the goal for myself, is to kind of show kids like, hey, we're from the Quad Cities. We only have one ice surface, but we can make it too. And hopefully I'm a role model for them and they can follow that. So,
right. That's fantastic. I love that. Yeah. So going back, okay. So I love it. So you were born an American. Do you have a dual citizen or not?
I have dual. Yeah.
Okay.
I got it like right around U18s, just because we didn't know if Hockey Canada could be a thing, but I ended up going USA Hockey anyway. So
gotcha. Yeah, because my boys are in the same boat because I married an American myself, and so they're all dual. So
take advantage of it because I mean it's pretty nice.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, right? It's definitely can be an advantage when it comes to, you know, if you're national level kind of worthy, right? At least you sort of have either option, right?
Or even going back and forth between the States and Canada. I mean, if you flash your American passport going into Canada, they don't make it easy on you. So
right. Yeah, no, exactly. So yeah, you get to free flow through that border pretty easily. And then it also opens you up for whatever later on, which is cool. But yeah, walk me through that whole process, because just for reference, I'll bring it back full circle. My oldest is a 2009 born, so his draft year for the WHL is this year. Right?
Yeah.
So he's going into his second year Bantam. He's playing at Rink Prep in the CSSHL. So I mean, he's super excited. Yeah, I mean he would love to hear his name called first of all, and if he does get his name called, he'd love it to have from the Spokane Chiefs behind it and follow in my footsteps. But path is a little simpler for him because he's a Canadian playing here. So you were playing in Quad Cities. Walk me through that whole scenario of jumping from the OHL and being able to be eligible for the WHL.
Yeah, well, that was the whole thing. Like that, second year Bantam, kind of started to figure out like, okay, I can do something with my hockey career here. Started getting college recognition or whatever those recruiters do. But yeah, my dad had the conversation with me. He said, do you want to go NCAA or do you want to try to get accepted to the WHL and go WHL? And I said, I mean, that's a dumb question. I mean, I want to go to Spokane. My brother was actually playing in Spokane. So Jake getting accepted to the WHL first made it a lot easier for me to kind of get switched over. So they were pretty chill about it. Yeah, and that.
What is that? And when you say pretty chill, like what do you have to do? Is it just like file some paperwork? Or
I think
what?
I think for Jake, he had to maybe file some paperwork, maybe file or maybe show that he played in the Western League and we have family roots in the Western League. And then for me, I think he just sent an email and the commissioner or to the board, whatever, and said, hey, we'd like to do the same thing for Luke.
Cool. And so when your draft year, was there, because right now there's the U.S. priority draft, I guess it's called, like that they're actually not a part of the regular draft. Did you have that, or were you just part of the mix?
It was priority draft just started like a couple years ago. So
gotcha.
So I was in the mix of the Canadian guys too.
Cool. So where did you go? Because I tried to look that up before we talked, but I couldn't find it.
8th overall.
Oh, sweet. So you're a high pick.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that's fun. So you did have a little bit more, I guess, whatever it is, clout or leeway with saying kind of where you wanted to go and where you wanted to play.
Yeah, I mean, there was a couple teams before the 8th pick that had kind of been hounding me too. So I was like, oh fuck. I mean, I don't want to go. I don't want to go anywhere else besides Spokane. If that's the case, I'd probably go to college.
Right.
So my agent at the time I was 14 years old, but agent at the time did a pretty good job talking to teams and I think other teams had an understanding. My brother was in Spokane at the time, and
right.
My dad and my uncle, like, they had an idea that Spokane was the way to go. So, and then
good.
Picked at 8, and the rest is history.
Awesome. That's fantastic. Was Tim Spelt still there then, or was he gone already?
Yeah, Spelty was there. So, he came out to Chicago, which is where I was actually playing. We commuted from Quad Cities to Chicago.
Yeah, your dad was saying that.
Yeah,
that's crazy. Well, tell everyone how far that is and what kind of commitment that was.
2.5 hours one way
for practice
for 4 days a week. Yeah, so 5 hours. I got really lucky. There was a couple other kids from Quad Cities that were doing it, so parents could kind of rotate. But for the most part, it was my mom and my dad doing that. So, pretty fortunate for that. But,
well, geez, man. Okay, so you're saying 2.5 hours one way, right? You just said?
Yeah, I'd leave school early, like at 2:30ish, and we'd get home at like 11 at night.
11 at night, 4 days a week.
Yeah, well, Tuesday through Thursday, and then games are, minor hockey games are Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So
right. So, and how old are you when you're doing that?
I was 10 to 16, because then I left minor hockey at 16 to go junior hockey.
Oh, okay, so Spokane actually drafted you from like that area, like they.
Yeah. Spelty. So, what I was getting at was Spelty came out to Chicago a couple times, so it was good to meet him and whatnot. But
so walk me through that, like as far as. Those are long days, first of all, right? So you're in a car, which is crazy. You still have to do school. You're getting home late. You're not getting really the sleep you want. Just that balance of like, was there ever a point where you thought, and believe me, tell me the right answer, like where you were like, what am I doing? Like, did it ever get to that?
Yes and no. As a middle school or high school kid, like you see all your school friends doing what they're doing every day after school or like on the weekends, and you kind of get a little bit jealous. But then at the same time, you think to yourself, like, I'm pretty lucky I'm playing for probably the best program in America in Chicago Mission, playing high level hockey. I started to get an idea that I could probably do something with my hockey career. So that anytime I kind of got off and was like, oh, like, I wish I was just with my buddies this weekend. Like, you got to just get your mind in the right spot. And I did that a lot because, I was so lucky to be where I was at and now to be where I am. So
good for you, man. That's I don't even, you and I have just met like now, 14 minutes ago. So I have no idea what your knowledge of me is, but like I do work with players on mindset and the mental side of the game.
Yeah.
And like for me, that umbrella of mindset like encompasses what you just talked about as part of it, meaning like one, what is your passion? And two, kind of what are you willing to do for it? And also gratitude, so. And I think those are all skills, right? Because like there could have been times there where maybe your passion wasn't quite as high as it was. long drives, late nights, you're starting to lose that passion. Like you can check in there, but that gratitude piece is such a big one for players. And it sounds like you had it, to be appreciative and to be thankful.
100%. Because like I mentioned, like hockey in Iowa, it's getting better, but I mean, if you want to do something with your career, you probably have to move out of Quad Cities just because it's only single A, double A hockey. So, I mean, just being grateful that I had the parents to drive that could leave work at 2:00, get home at 11:00, spend the gas money. I mean, just, yeah, you gotta check in, and you gotta say like, wow, I'm pretty fortunate, because not many parents would probably do that. And you could probably just be stuck playing double A hockey in your hometown if that's the case.
Yeah. Okay, so now you've been through it now, and I know this will be a storyline throughout the time that we talk, because you've done the 4 years of junior, maybe even 5. You did 5, and you had a trade in that time. You mean, you had to battle to get an AHL deal. You just battled and got your NHL deal. Like, I mean, there's a lot of shit that can go on, and there's a lot of bad stuff that can happen. There's a lot of great stuff that can happen too. But you need to love what you do, correct? Like, is that not an essential part of the element?
I mean, 100%. Like, the draft day, my first year, like your first year going into the draft. So when I was, after my 17-year-old season, I was 18 at the time of the draft, because it's in the summertime. But I mean, that draft day was probably up there for one of the worst days of my life, just because you have all the draft hype, you have all the whatnot going around. All your hometown buddies are like, well, you're getting drafted. Had a draft party. Everybody's there. 7 rounds go by and you don't get drafted. So it's just the feeling of letdown. But then the next day you're on a plane. I was on a plane going to Winnipeg to their development camp, and it's like, all right, check in again. You love doing this, and it's time to prove people wrong. And I think ever since that first year going undrafted, I had a chip on my shoulder, and I don't think I've lost that ever. I think I kind of always check back into that day and really remember how I felt, and that I don't want to feel that way again. I don't want to feel the uncertainty of my hockey career or stuff like that, or letting other people down. So it's just checking in. And I mean, yeah, it's awesome to have the support and whatnot that I had.
Right. But yeah, I mean, that big piece of like the long drives, like the battles, like when it's not going great, and maybe the runway seems like it could be running out, like there's lots of reasons that the game is going to give you to give up and to say, you know what, not today. And that's one of those things that I just like, I don't know, like for me talking to you right now, right? I have no idea where your career is going to go, right? Hopefully you play from Boston, who knows, right? Like I have no idea. And I don't know when I'm talking to somebody who's 16 years old, what's going to happen with them. But the big but is like, what are you doing it for, and why do you do it, right? And if you can answer those two questions, and it's not about making $1 million, and if it's not about, like some of these things that like, and I think that why I'm bringing that up is because I think that weeds out kind of the pretenders from the hockey players. Yeah, you got to be a hockey player, right?
100%. And I think that's where it's kind of easier for me, sort of say, to check in, because if I am having a bad day, or if I am getting let down by the game, sort of say, I remember what I'm doing it for. And I mean, parents is the easiest question, or easiest answer. I mean, 2.5 hours a day for 6 years. I mean, that's a pretty easy answer. Give back to them. Being the first kid from the Quad Cities to sign a contract, I mean, that's a pretty easy answer. Give back to where you came from. I mean, those two are like the big two that it's like, all right, like you got this under your belt, like what you're doing this for. Now go do it for them.
Right. Cool. And how big of a piece is it for you though, too?
I mean, yeah, it's ever since I was 2 years old. I mean, that's kind of been the dream. I mean, growing up, I don't remember much of my dad's career, but just because he retired in 2004 and I was born in 2001. But I mean, being around the game and seeing him play pro hockey, and then you just watch YouTube, you watch hockey games when you're growing up and whatnot. You're around the game your whole life, and you see these big time when you're that young celebrities, NHLers, Sidney Crosby, Alex Ovechkin, those guys. When you're 8 years old, I mean, you want to be one of them. And I think for me, that's where I can also look in the mirror and I'm like, and I want to be them one day.
Yeah.
So
super fun. So walk me through that, because that would have been a kick right in the pants. So coming from Quad Cities, you were a stud there for sure, right? Not much hockey there. Like you said, you started to figure out that you were pretty good, so good that you were going to go play AAA in Chicago, right? And then you're obviously performing there and doing well there. And now you're like, oh, I'm amongst the big boys, and you get drafted 8th overall and everything seems pretty rosy, right?
Yeah.
And you have a pretty good year in Spokane, then you have a pretty good draft year too. And then all of a sudden your name doesn't get called. And that was the first time that probably the wind really got knocked out of your sails, right?
Yeah. I mean, before that I was getting cut from the brick team. So that put a,
oh, okay.
But I was more making a joke, but
but did you get cut from the brick team?
Yeah, I got cut from the brick team, damn it. But yeah, like you said, playing in the Western League at 16, I mean, that's a struggle. I mean, I don't know if you played at 6, like you said, I'm not totally familiar with your career, but I mean, playing in the Western League at 16 is pretty tough. So that was kind of an eye opener. But I got the hang of it. I mean, I had a pretty good 16-year-old year. Then that whole summer after your 16-year-old year is kind of when draft prep starts, right? Like played in the Hlinka Gretzky Cup for Team USA, had an awesome tournament there. Then like you said, had a good draft year. So it's like every time I talk to my agent, or I mean, you try not to do this, but read stuff online or stuff like that. It's like Luke Toporowski, anywhere from 3rd round to 5th round, 6th round. And that's all I kept hearing every time. Interviewed with lots of teams throughout the year. So yeah, like we had a draft party and then 7th round comes around and you're sitting there and everybody's like kind of getting quiet. And then, the 7th round ends and it's like, holy man, like this whole last year, I'm hyping myself up. People are hyping me up, whatnot. And then, I mean, it's a bite in the ass. That's for sure.
Yeah. The draft's an amazing thing. It is.
It's crazy. Like you're 17 years old and you were like, the draft is pretty crazy.
Yeah, and there's so much. I mean, there's so much. Like my boy, and I'm sure you in your draft year, like this is his first kind of step into, let's say, big boy hockey, right? Like there's people actually evaluating you, and there's going to be some rankings that are coming out, and so this will be his first taste of it. But obviously, when you talk about the worldwide stage of the NHL draft, like you're envisioning that as a 10-year-old before you're envisioning the WHL draft or whatever. Like you're seeing your name called or thinking about that, and now you've put yourself in position to have it potentially be happen, and it doesn't happen. And then you get the phone call the next day to go to development camp, and you got to lick your wounds and dust yourself off and go again. But like in your old man's post when he wrote that, he said then he got passed over again. Like, what about that next year? Like how was that whole process of like still deciding that no, I'm going to be a pro hockey player. I don't care what these guys are saying. And
even that even that following year, so my 18-year-old season, I mean, I thought I had a good year, and like how the NHL draft work. It's like if you don't go your first year, it's kind of tougher to go your second and third year. But I mean, it still happens quite often. And I thought I had a good enough year to even go my second year, and then COVID hit. So COVID hit during my second draft year, which was my 3rd year in the WHL, and ended on a good note. And like you said, I mean, got passed up again. And then it's like, holy, like, how is this hockey career going to, how's my hockey career going to end up? And I mean, I was only 18 years old. I have at that time, 15 more years of hockey in front of me if I really want to, but it's tough to see the light. Second year getting undrafted, and then 3rd year going undrafted. So it's like, and at that point you're a free agent. So, I mean, then you got to battle for a free agent contract. So
we'll talk. I mean, because you know what? Getting back to the draft and meeting the WHL draft, and I'm already trying to prepare Hudson, saying like it's one moment in time, right? It's one day, one moment in time. And at the WHL level, roughly 30 to 35% of the league is undrafted, right? That's what it consists of. NHL, the odds do go down even a little bit more, right? But there is a percentage of players that are undrafted for sure that play in the NHL, and it just doesn't work out that way. And these are just moments in time. What is your advice to the players out there, whether passed over in the WHL draft or I mean, a little bit on your heels and have been passed over in the NHL draft? Like, what's your message to them?
Well, like you said, you gotta check in. You gotta remember what you're doing it for and why you're doing it. And I think if you can answer those questions, any adversity you're going through you'll be able to push through it. Just reminding yourself those answers, and those should push you through. But I mean, it is tough. You see your best friends get drafted, or your buddies that you played with get drafted, and you get a little sour, but it just makes you want to work that much harder. And for me, that's the way it went. I mean, I was balls to the wall, blinders on, focusing on myself. I mean, after that first year, I really did that. Second and third year, it didn't bother me as much because I knew like I'm responsible for this. I'm going to take action. And I think if you take action in your game and in your off ice habits and whatnot, if you treat the game well, the game it'll get back to you. And I think I'm getting a little bit of that taste back. But the hard work for me is now just starting again. So
yeah, it never ends. It never ends, right?
I've heard hard work is starting now, probably 6 years or 6 times in my career. So
isn't that the truth though? I mean, that's totally the truth. Like,
you get drafted in the W, or you go to AAA. It's like hard work starting now. If you get drafted in the WHL, hard work starting now. But it's true. I mean, it doesn't end. It doesn't stop. You got to work that much harder. And yeah, I mean, these kids getting passed up and whatnot. I mean, you just got to go balls to the wall after that and focus on yourself. And it's tough because so much stuff is online now. I mean, so much social media. So it's tough to kind of check in and I've been a victim to getting sucked in on the social media side, but you just gotta focus. And I mean,
I think we should touch on that too. Maybe we'll get to it, but I just want to highlight the fact that you found a way to use it as fuel, because it's so easy, and you kind of alluded to it a little bit, to play the comparison game. You know, whatever you're like, and I know a stat line's just a stat line, and I don't know exactly what type of player you are, but for sure you're sitting there going, he got drafted? That guy got drafted, right?
100%. Or I'm better than him. Like, what the fuck? Like, all the time. So it is. Yeah, like you said, a stat line is a stat line. Stats don't always matter, but we're 17 years old. Like, we're going to be looking at the stats. We're going to be looking at our buddy's stats. It's the nature of human being in the game. So, but
then you used it though, is what I'm saying, right? So you could, like, I think there's a fork in the road there, right? Where you can continue to play the comparison game, right? And say, well, I should have, that's not fair, this, that, or the other. Or you can unpackage that and be like, well, now it's time to get better. Now it's time to get even better, you know? And it sounds like that's sort of what you did. You've mentioned putting on the blinders, and now I'm going to get down to work. Like, were you mature enough in that moment to say, yeah, I got to get better. I got to prove these guys wrong?
100%. And I don't like to pat myself on the back. I mean, that's how we are. But I mean, I think I matured a lot just from those drives to Chicago. I mean, you have to mature if you're time management and whatnot. So my parents helped me mature pretty early, get in the right mindset. So yeah, like you said, I mean, it is a fork in the road, and you can decide which road you want, which road you want to go down in that fork. And yeah, I was mature enough that, I mean, even the day after the draft, before I left for Winnipeg, I did a hard workout. And then you get back from those development camps, and you just keep going, you keep grinding. And then, at some point it's gonna pay off. So I think you just have to, like you said, stay focused, be mature about it, and don't get too sour. I mean, the day of, you can be sour and whatnot. But after that, like you said, it's one moment in time. It's one day. Keep working after that day.
Yeah, good for you. That is one thing that I work with my players on. I call it closing the gap. Obviously, that's a term you're familiar with on ice, you know, how to play the game. But I talk about it from a mental perspective, because like your ability, Luke Toporowski's ability to close the gap in that moment and not let it be a pity party for 2 weeks or 3 weeks or for a month. Like, does that not increase your chances of coming into camp or doing whatever a lot quicker, right? So like that ability to snap, right? Okay, I'm going to have my moment. I'm a human being, right? There's some feelings here that I got to deal with, but I'm not going to let them get to me. I'm not going to wallow in it, right? I'm going to close the gap here, and I'm going to switch directions. So it sounds like you were able to close the gap in that scenario. And I kind of call that mental toughness, really. I mean, the quicker you are at that, the better you are at that, the more mentally tough you are.
Yeah. And maybe if you do get drafted, you get a little satisfied. So maybe that even slowed people down and made me working harder, close the gap quicker.
Right.
Sort of say. So yeah, I mean, and you just do that over time, day after day after day, you're going to close that gap. And I mean, if you go back and look at the 2019 draft class, there's kids who get drafted and they don't even get signed. So, I mean, and I was just a player who didn't get drafted and then eventually got signed. So, I mean, yeah, it's how you want to look at it on draft day. It's how you want to look at it the days after that too.
Yeah. Different route for everybody. That's for sure.
Yeah.
You mentioned hard work starts, and it started like 6 times already for you in your career. And I think that's an interesting topic, just because I'm always talking about raising our standards, our personal standards, right? And the quicker that we can do that on our own, the more empowered we can become, and we help that development curve. Because I remember for me multiple times in my career, like where I kind of thought that I was working hard, and then I was exposed to a different environment or a different set of standards, right? Either they're from somebody else or the league itself, you know, and I was like, holy shit, no, this is where I got to get to, right? So can you speak to that? Like when maybe that moment was when you went to an NHL camp, or maybe you went to that development camp, you started seeing how guys operate, and you had to like readjust where you were at or try and stay ahead of them in some aspect.
It was actually, there is a moment in time for me, because it was my 16-year-old year. I was in Spokane, and I playing AAA hockey, being the best player, whatever. You think you work hard, and then I went to the WHL and I was doing the same habits. And I remember we wear like the heart rate monitors in practice, and it was like 3 weeks into the season, and my head coach at the time, Dan Lambert, who's an assistant in Calgary now, pulled me into the office and was like, do you think you work hard? And I was like, yeah. And then he just showed me the heart rate sheet for like all the practices, and I'm at the very bottom. I'm like, okay, maybe I got a wake up call. And then I was getting healthy scratched a couple games at 16. So I was like, okay, like I do have to work way harder than I think I'm working. And then I remember my exit meeting when I was 16. I walked in for my exit meeting, and Dan said, I'm worried about you this summer. And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, well, first of all, people have sophomore slumps. Their second season, they're maybe not as good. And I don't love your work ethic. So that just made me wake up kind of, and look in the mirror and say, okay, I got to work way harder. So ever since then, I mean, I kind of changed my work ethic. I really, really started pushing myself and not really focusing on what others are doing, but just pushing that much harder, even though it might hurt in the moment or might be sore. And then another kind of, not a wake-up call, but going into my first year pro, you're going in the corners against 30-year-old men, 28, 29, 30-year-old men. And it's not that I wasn't working hard. It was just, holy cow, these men are way stronger than me. Like, these are men I'm playing against now, not 16 to 20-year-old junior hockey. These are legit hockey players. So I think this summer, that's kind of been my focus, is putting on that muscle and getting much stronger, because going in the corners, you get knocked off the puck too easy or stuff like that. And so that's something I really been focusing on. And I think that was another sort of click in my workouts and my on ice capability, that I got to push it even that much harder.
Yeah, good for you. I remember the same thing, you don't realize when you're in the moment, but in junior hockey, obviously it gets easier as you go.
Yeah.
But at the time, I remember just assuming that I was just getting better, right? So that it became easier. I didn't really contemplate that the whole league was getting younger, right? Like, it was easier for me because of the age factor, right? There was a maturity factor.
Yeah.
And then you step into that 20-year-old year, that 21-year-old year in your case, and now you're a professional. To your point, you got guys that are 10 years older than you, maybe 15 years older than you. And they've been doing it for a long time. They've been collecting a check for a long time. They know how to play the game a little more differently, and they got man strength. Like, these are men. And then generally speaking, and I'm sure you would vouch to this, like the habits of a professional are much different than even the most professional Western Hockey League captain. You know what I mean? Like, it's a whole new ball. It's a whole new ball game. This is how they feed their kids. This is how they pay their mortgage, right? And they're going to protect that job the best they can. So it's generally an eye opener that first year. Anyone on that Providence team for you that was that elder statesman that kind of showed you what it took to be a pro?
We had a great group of young guys, but we had also a great group of vets. I mean, walking into the locker room as a rookie in pro hockey can be pretty intimidating, but our vets in Providence, at least, were awesome. They took us rookies kind of out of their wing. They talked to us, because how sometimes vets can maybe just blow you off or stuff like that. But I mean, we had Connor Carrick, who was a great vet for us. He talked to young guys all the time. He joked around with us. He was always in the gym stretching or rolling out or doing whatever. Vinny Lettieri is another one who we were injured at the same time this year, and he kind of took me under his wing, and we would always work out together. We'd go shoot pucks together. We would be on the ice late after practice together and just stuff like that. So you want to kind of follow these guys and be a sponge your first couple of years pro, because I mean, they've been there for, like you said, 10, 15 years and they've been collecting the checks, so they know how to do it. And I think if you can take bits and pieces from each one of them and kind of put it to your own game, then I mean, that's the best way to do it, I think.
No, for sure. Just want to take a short break from the conversation with Luke Toporowski to do something that I don't usually do here at the breaks. And I'm just going to go on a little bit of a gratitude tangent on Spokane. It just, as I was sitting here thinking about the conversation I just had with Luke and, him playing 5 years there, myself playing 4, and his dad before him, and his brother, his dad's brother, playing in Spokane. It's just made me kind of had a flood of memories about the Chiefs and obviously the connection it had between all of us. And I just wanted to say thank you to Spokane, to junior hockey in the WHL. Those years there from 16, I played some games in my 15-year-old year, but I'd already turned 16. Up to the time that I turned 20 years old. Like, talk about formidable years, talk about a really impressionable time in a young man or woman's life. And that city was just great to me. The fans were fantastic, and I kind of don't like even using the words fans. Yes, they were people that came to the game, but they were, they're people, right? They're people that wanted to take care of other people. And that's really what I remember, like there was so much support in that city for us at that time. And I don't know how it is now, but the amount of people that followed the team, the amount of people that wanted to support the team and the players within it and to make our lives easier, most of us obviously being away from home and some of us in a new country at the time, it just made the whole experience that much better. And not only was it the fans, but it was also just like all the people in the front office. Brenda that worked in the office was amazing. Tim Speltz, the GM, was so supportive, and the ownership group there with Bobby Brett was absolutely fantastic to me. And
and to my family and to my parents. And I just think, when I look back on those times, and yeah, not every season was smooth, and there was ups and downs like there is all the time. But, as a whole, that experience was just fantastic. The WHL treated me great, and the Spokane area in general treated me great. And yeah, and who knows what'll happen. As you've been hearing the conversation, Luke always wanted to play for Spokane. I know Hudson would love to play for Spokane if he gets the chance and goes that route. And I think Gunnar and TJ would also like to. I think that'd be a fantastic place for my boys to play junior hockey if they are good enough and if Spokane wants them. So anyways, just a little walk down memory lane, which actually kind of brings me to another point is, in thinking about all the stuff that's been happening with the Chiefs, I actually contacted a former teammate of mine, Derek Schutz, who was the 16-year-old when I was there and played a couple of years while I was there. And I know he still lives in the area, and his son's involved in the youth hockey system there. And I said, you know what, do you have anyone that you can connect me with? Like, I would love to bring up my hockey to Spokane and give some mental fitness support and some mindset support to the players there and help them along their journey and just help that area that's given me so much. So by the time you're hearing this, I will have already met with the president of SEA, the Spokane Hockey Association there, and who knows what's going to happen. But it's amazing how things come full circle, and yeah, if I can support some of the amateur athletes there in Spokane with what I do now with Up My Hockey, that would be absolutely fantastic. So hope that meeting goes well. And obviously, even if it doesn't, it doesn't diminish my time spent there and what that city means to me. Which is maybe a good little time for a sales pitch. I mean, that is Up My Hockey is where it's going this fall, and definitely in the future is going to be serving associations and academies or teams as a one-off team model. But if you are a part of an association anywhere in North America and you want to be progressive and you think that the sporting, the mental fitness of your athletes, the personal development aspect of hockey and your ability to create confidence and keep confidence and recover from mistakes and to support teammates along the way and develop the growth mindset required to reach your goals and dreams. If you think that's important, and if that's something that isn't offered in a plug and play type system, then maybe Up My Hockey is something that you would want to consider, that you would want to call your president and say, hey, why don't we bring this in? When it comes to the overall scope and cost of hockey, it is not a massive investment. For an association to do it, we're talking about the cost of a hockey stick for a licensee model for players, depending on what aspect of service you want to bring in. But it's a relatively affordable option, and you're bringing in an immense amount of value for all the people that are within your membership group. So yes, so I don't know where that's going to go with Spokane. Maybe I will be supporting the athletes of Spokane, but if you're somebody out there from another association outside of Spokane and you would like to entertain the idea of what that looks like, by all means reach out to me on DM or through my website, and we can talk about the programs and the support services that I am providing for academies or associations. Now let's get back to the conversation with Luke Toporowski. That's one thing that I wish I did more of. Like, I'm an inquisitive guy, I feel, and I'm curious, but for whatever reason in locker room sometimes and how the dynamics of it, I don't know if it was an ego thing or not, or I really don't know. I haven't been able to unpackage that, but like the asking questions, like to go find that guy and and just to be like, allow yourself to be a rookie, not pretend to be anything else. Like, what do I need to know here? What can I teach her? What do you see in my game? Like, I never did that, and I wish I would have.
Yeah, I mean, you like you said, you just gotta recognize you're a rookie. Like, everybody else was a rookie at one point also, so they know the ropes, and you're foolish if you don't ask questions, and you might be embarrassed because you might think you're supposed to know what to do and whatnot. But I mean, in reality, you don't. It's your first year pro. It's your first 2 weeks pro. You need to ask questions. You need to kind of know the ropes and start to get a feel for things. And like I said, we had a great group of vets in Providence that answered those questions. So
that's awesome.
Well, maybe that's a good. I noticed that Trent Whitfield is one of your assistant coaches there, and so like continue the Spokane Chiefs thread. He wore the C there for a while. He was actually my line mate for 2 seasons. So tell me about Witter. Was he somebody that because of the Chief Alliance, did you feel like you were kind of part of it, or he was looking out for you a little bit?
Totally. I mean, yeah, Witter was amazing ever since the day I signed my AHL contract. He reached out to me, and then I got to camp, and yeah, we had instant connection. It's just so much easier when you can connect about something or have something in common, and especially with a coach, because I mean, sometimes pro coaches can be intimidating and you don't really want to talk to them, but we had that instant Chief connection and that we had that in common. And I think that helped our relationship all season long. I mean, he was talking to me all the time, and I think that just helped because it's so much easier to talk to him, go up to him and maybe mention something about the Chiefs, and then a couple of minutes later ask him something about my game.
Right.
Just stuff like that. So our coaches were awesome this year. Witter was awesome. So I'm just looking forward to get back.
Yes, for all you hockey players listening out there, especially the younger guys, like you have so much information at your disposal now, like with the Hockey DB and the elite prospects. And I say this in like with authenticity, like if you are curious about those that are going to be coaching you and you know more about them, it's undoubtedly going to help you create a connection, right? So it's not like, and I say that because I don't want you to be like a strategizing brown noser. Like that's not the idea. It's just like, have a human connection. Like if you have a human connection, it's going to help you. I mean, like you said, with your communication aspect, maybe they're going to come out of their way a little bit easier for you or whatever, but to not use that information and to not be curious, I think people are just not going about it the right way.
Our coaches were so good about that too, is like we'd be in the lounge, or like I'd be in the lounge having breakfast, and they'd come up to me and just like ask about family or ask about your life away from the rink, and just having, like you said, a human connection rather just than a player coach connection makes it that much easier when you are on the ice or when you are in video or whatnot to be able to talk to them. It's just so much easier if you can be personable and have something in common or be able to talk to them about stuff away from the game.
No, I love that. I love you saying that. I love you recognizing it, because now you are accountable to the two-way process of that.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? It's not just one way. Yes, you want your coach to come and be interested in you, but that's why I always tell the players I work with, you got to be interested in them too, right? It's a two-way street.
Yeah.
And especially most of the coaches in this day and age have some type of story. Like Witter played NHL games. He had a long career, right? Like even if that Spokane Chief connection wasn't there, like asking them about their career, like what do you like playing for? What was his toughest opponent? What was the hardest thing he had to do? Like those are all great questions that you can learn from. And it gets them excited to share. I mean, some of the stuff that maybe you're interested in.
Totally. Yeah. That's a great point.
So yeah, Witter, actually, you're going to have to give him shit because I got his number. I forget the name of the player. I'm working with the Salmon Arm Silverbacks out here, and one of the players on their team knows Witter from that area and ended up getting his number after all these years. And anyways, like we chatted once, and then I think he's ghosted me almost. Like he doesn't want to. I wanted to get him on the pod and everything, and it's like I can't get a hold of him. So you're gonna have to rattle his chain for me.
Well, we were texting yesterday, and then I sent him another. I replied to one of his texts, and he just didn't reply to me. So I will give him shit, and I hope he's listening. Damn it.
Yeah, there you go. Give him shit.
Are you in Salmon Arm then?
I'm in Vernon, so I'm just outside of Salmon Arm.
Oh, okay. I played in Kamloops and met a girl there. So my girlfriend lives in Kamloops now. So
sweet.
I'm
cool.
up there all the time.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we'll meet one of these days.
Yeah.
So let's turn it back just a little bit. I wanted to talk about that word you said, look in the mirror there at 16. And we were talking about standards, and that's a word that I love is self-assessment. Like if your ability to self-assess as a hockey player is better than your peers, like first of all, I think that's a huge advantage. Like let's just pretend, right? If your ability to self-assess at 16 happened in November instead of at the end of the season, right, with the wake-up call, and thank goodness you had a coach that was super on with you and you were able to reflect and then make the strides you needed to. But I mean, if you would have saved yourself 6-7 months there, might have been a little bit of a game changer, right? Can you speak to a little bit about the ability to self-assess, and now that you're a professional too, and how that skill can help players?
Totally. I think sometimes as players we can have egos about our game, and maybe it's everybody else's fault and not so much your own. But I mean, yeah, Dan was super honest with me. And that kind of started my, okay, look in the mirror sort of mindset. Because I mean, the facts didn't lie. The heart rates didn't lie. I was at the bottom, and I can't deny that. So I got to look in the mirror and say, okay, these are the facts, and you got to turn it around, sort of say. And ever since then, it's helped. It's helped my game grow. Maybe you have maybe your team has a bad game, and you could easily say, oh, my team played like shit. So I mean, obviously, like, it's just not going to be a great game. But maybe you had bad plays in there. Maybe you didn't have your best game, and you can. And video is so good about that now, because you can go home, sit on your couch, and watch your own clips, and you can assess yourself. And okay, maybe that wasn't my best game, right, but what am I going to do to rebound? And just having that, I like to have like a goldfish mindset, like the forget about it. Because especially as a rookie, like if you make a mistake in the first period and you're thinking about that the whole game, like it's not going to go well. You're going to be overthinking the game. And for me, when I play best is when I'm not thinking, and I'm just acting and reacting. And so yeah, just being able to self-assess, maybe have that goldfish mindset. Okay, I didn't have a great game tonight, but tomorrow it's going to be a great game. And just kind of having that mindset all year in my rookie season helped me a lot.
Yeah, good for you. I've worked with both types of players, like the one that the self-assessment is always too critical, right? Like we're all, perfectionist mindset, like we're really rattled every time we're focused on the things that didn't go well. And, and we remember all those points. And then also the guys that are pretty comfortable and like their game lots, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So do you find yourself have a natural tendency to be on either side of that fence, and which one would it be?
Well, I mean, it's definitely not being too comfortable with your game. A rookie in pro hockey, I mean, you can't really be that comfortable. It's tough to have a lot of confidence. I found it at least tough to have a lot of confidence as a rookie, because you don't want to overstep these 10-year vets that maybe, I mean, obviously know the game better than you. And so maybe just, sometimes I found myself making a mistake or missing a pass, and yeah, I would get too critical on myself. I'd maybe get embarrassed or start thinking like, oh, these guys probably think I suck now, or just like stuff like that. And that's where you got to stay away from that, because you'll go down. I would find myself maybe going down a rabbit hole, and then not having confidence in practice, and just even off the ice. So, I struggle with that maybe early on, especially because it's early on in your pro career. You're not comfortable with anything. But then during the season, getting better at that goldfish mindset that, I mean, we're all human. We watch the NHL games. They're fucking up just as much as we are. But maybe we don't see it as often. But I mean, we're all human. We're all hockey players. So it's going to happen. And I think that helped me.
Good for you. I mean, I talk about that when I'm walking players through my program, or even working them individually, is like house league thoughts are your all-star thoughts, right? And then the house league ones are the ones you kind of already mentioned, like, oh, am I supposed to be here? Or they think I'm an idiot, or I look like crap, or what are the coaches thinking? Like, those are all answers. I mean, questions that you're going to give yourself answers to, like subconsciously or consciously, right?
Yeah.
And again, being able to control those thoughts is such a key component. And you talk about the goldfish mindset, like the 5-second memory. I love that. But the ability to be aware enough in the moment to recognize that you're having that thought, to switch it, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, to be able to have a different thought process changes your state, gets you ready for your next shift. And that's an ongoing, obviously, practice for a lot of people to get better at it. And it sounds like you got better at it. But I like breaking it down for guys sometimes like that, because it's like, oh yeah, because now you realize now in that moment that there is a choice. Like every time there's a choice, right? Like how you want to think, the thoughts you want to think, and how you're going to respond. And when we get those
get those patterns habituated, we just automatically start, getting to the right mental state to be able to go out there and play the next shift. And to your point, I don't know many seasons that are harder than your rookie pro season. And so you just not only did you do it, but you actually earned an NHL deal coming out of it. So you obviously did some good things along the way there, sir.
Yeah. It's tough to, like you said, it's an ongoing practice. I wouldn't say I'm good at doing that goldfish mindset. It's just something I've kind of worked on. And I always tell myself, like, we're all human. We're all going to mess up. Everybody's going to miss a pass. Just don't miss the next one.
Just don't do it again.
Yeah, just don't miss the next one. You can miss the following one after that. But I don't know. It's a tough game. It's tough mentally. It's tough physically. And I think if you can work at both of them, then you'll succeed. So
what a great point to ask the question. So generally speaking, when I'm working with players, the majority of their life has been spent on the physical side of it, the physical skills, right? Like the practice, the shooting pucks, in the gym, the getting stronger, like all that kind of stuff. And now you're at this elite level of hockey, this pro level, the funnel's super tight. How much of the game do you think in actuality is mental compared to the physical piece?
I don't know if I can put a number on it, but just the whole the whole confidence thing. You gotta be mentally strong and have confidence if you want to play your best game, play your A game. Because if I would always find myself, if I wasn't confident, then that's when I would be missing the passes, or that's when I would be making turnovers because I'm gripping the stick too tight. And you just got to be loose. You got to have fun. You got to mess around. And I think that's where the mental side comes into play. I wish I worked more on my mental game, meeting with people. We have a sports psychologist that works for us. Just meeting with him more often, I think, would be really beneficial for myself as a younger guy, as a guy that was on an NHL deal, maybe not having the confidence of an NHL deal player, but I don't know, it's probably just as important. Well, and it's definitely just as important because if you're not loose, if you're uptight, if you're doubting yourself, then you won't have the physical ability to bring your A game.
Yeah. No, it couldn't be. And you've experienced as a player, I know I have. From one weekend to the next, the mindset piece is different. The game is remarkably different. The skills are obviously the same. I skate the same. My shot's the same. Like all these things I do are the same, but it's not executing the same, right? And the difference is here.
Yeah, definitely. Like you said, one weekend you can score 3 goals, 2 assists, and then the next weekend you're like, I forgot how to play this. In your rookie year in pro hockey, that'll happen for sure.
What was your biggest, what was the best thing and what was the biggest challenge, or like the two things? Like what was the coolest thing about pro hockey this year, earning a check, and what was the hardest thing to get through?
Well, I think the coolest thing was it didn't really feel like much different than kind of junior hockey or minor hockey. Like I was just showing up to the rink every day. Like I didn't kind of feel like it was a job, but then every 2 weeks you are getting that paycheck, and that was like kind of cool. It was cool meeting or like playing with vets, like playing with Anton Strahlman, who's played 1,000 games in the NHL. He was down in Providence with us, or just like guys who have played a few hundred NHL games, just being around those types of guys. That's really cool. Being at NHL camps. That's obviously awesome. Challenges were confidence, I would say. You have a bad game. It was tougher to rebound as a younger guy because maybe you do start to get that self-doubt, but as the season went on, I feel like I got a lot better at that. And then, like I said, the strength. That's the number one thing I noticed with myself was not so much the speed of the game. I didn't really find myself struggling with that, but the strength of battles, of net front. D-man boxing you out is incredible with they're 30 years old. I got in one fight this year and I thought it was a little guy and he just kicked the shit out of me because it was like some old man that had been playing for in the league for a while. So just stuff like that was challenging physically, and I'm going to be working on that for the rest of my career because I am a smaller player in the game.
Right. Well, just back to the coaches again, and with the rookie, and I've had this conversation with the likes, whatever, lots of players that have gone through at the NHL level, high picks, not high picks, but the ability to have what feels like a little bit of freedom to potentially make a mistake when we're younger, right? So it's not like the one mistake and your butt stapled to the bench for the rest of the game, or you're up in the lineup. And a lot of guys have those stories too, right? Now, if that's the story, like it's really hard to get the mindset right and to play loose. Like when the actual problem, if you make a mistake, is that you're done. How was it this year in your environment with that? Like, what was the message? How many chances did you get? What was that like?
Unbelievable. I mean, going into the year, I kind of did have that mindset, like, okay, I can't fuck up, or because maybe I will be in the stands, or maybe I'll be down in the East Coast League. But my coaches were unbelievable. From Witter to our other assistant to our head guy. I mean, they would check in with me if I was just in the gym rolling out. They'd come up to me and say, "Hey, how'd you think your game was this weekend?" And I would be, I don't know. I struggled on the wall. I couldn't get pucks off the wall, or I didn't think it was my best game. And he said, and they would just be so good about it. They'd say, that's how hockey works. I mean, you're a rookie. You're going to have ups and downs in your year. And they were just good about it. I mean, I played pretty much every game until I was hurt. And then when I got back from my injury, I was in the lineup again. So, I mean, as a young guy, I couldn't have asked for better coaches than that.
That's awesome. What was your minutes like? What type of time on ice were you getting?
I was anywhere from 12 to some nights I was 18, 19.
Oh, wow.
It really depended on power play because I was on the power play, but I wasn't on the penalty kill. So, I mean, if we had a night that we were PKing a lot, then it kind of went down. But if we had a night where we were on the power play a lot, it definitely helped. I mean, I had a couple nights of 4 or 5 minutes of power play time. So
right.
They were awesome about that. But as a rookie, but that's another thing. Like, I'm on an AHL deal. I'm a rookie. You can't have expectations to play 18, 19, 20 minutes a night because that's not going to be the reality for myself, because there's guys on NHL deals. There's guys that have been playing pro hockey or in that league for 8 to 10 years. So you got to kind of check in that standpoint. Otherwise, you'll always be disappointed. You'll always be let down. And I think that kind of helped me, because the nights I did have 11 to 12 minutes, I could still assess my game and notice the good things I did well. And maybe that was just the flow of the game that night, and it wasn't personal.
Sure. And 11 to 12, there's actually really nothing too wrong with that either, right?
No, it's not. But
yeah, and I mean, I like your idea there of expectations. Like we can want that, and we can strive for it, and we can push to earn it, right? But as soon as we get into that entitled kind of piece, like I expect it, that's when it all falls apart, right?
Exactly. So. And I think I did do a good job of earning more minutes as the year came down. As the year went on, I started to play much more and whatnot. And I remember actually the first thing Witter said to me during AHL training camp was, you'll have to be patient, because you have to recognize there are guys on NHL deals and you're on an AHL deal. And that's just the way management works. That's the way it's going to go, is NHL contract guys are going to get more opportunity. But I think as the year went on, I kind of closed that gap and made them make decisions about lineup or minutes and whatnot. So, I mean, yeah, like you said, not being entitled, but always pushing yourself to earn those,
right?
Earn that opportunity.
Yeah, good for you, man. Like, I mean, I've seen it. I mean, it is harder, and it's not fair. I mean, that's the thing. Like, it's not fair. You could have somebody that's on an NHL deal that isn't playing as well, that isn't maybe as good as you, and he might be getting more minutes, and that's the way it works sometimes. Yeah. And you got to keep your nose down, and you got to grind it out, and you got to keep working, and for you to do that in that organization. I mean, obviously a testament to what you got going on. whether from a character side or from a work ethic side or even from a skill game side, right? I'm sure that's obviously a big part of it too. But to do that as an AHLer with the Boston Bruin club doing what they were doing last year, and then they're in your deal, that's pretty awesome, man. What was it like even being underneath of that all-time type season? What was that like for you guys?
It was crazy. I mean, and we were only 45 minutes away from Boston. Like Providence is only 45 minutes away from Boston. So, I mean, there was buzz going around town and whatnot. It was pretty cool to witness. I mean, you were at NHL training camp with all those guys, and you were on the ice with those guys. So it was just awesome to see them, I mean, be so successful. And we would watch every game every night and whatnot, and watch video on their game, maybe before practice and whatnot, and just, I don't know, pick parts of their game. And we had a good team too. I mean, we were first place the whole season. So, I mean, it was kind of a good year for the Bruins organization.
Okay.
Playoffs.
Well, I was just going to say, I didn't want to poke a hole in the balloon, but like I saw that you had 4 playoff games. Did you get hurt, or did you guys get a first round exit as well?
We it's best of 5 in the AHL, and we lost in 4.
Jeez. And you were first place in your division?
Yep.
Oh,
we lost to Hartford. Yeah.
Jeez, isn't that ironic? That's crazy.
It's weird how when playoffs come, like regular season doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It gets you home ice and which is key. But I mean, we lost both at home because for games 1 and 2, and in playoffs, it's a whole new game.
It's a whole new game, man. A couple bounces here and there, and it's like fight for your life. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, even that, I mean, that's the thing. Like, I mean, now they're going to break down the NHL playoffs, but like, how close was Boston to getting out of that first round? You know what I mean?
Well, like Marshy was on a breakaway in Game 5, and
right,
yeah, like it's just so crazy. Game 7 overtime.
Yeah, I mean, it could have gone either way, and then it's a catastrophic failure for the Bruins, and like there was like one little bounce here or there in one of those games, and it's not. But that's playoff hockey, and that's why I think what makes our sport so great is because of the parity when it comes to it in the playoffs. It's a team game. It's one of many, and there's so many things that can happen that anyone can really win on any given night. It's nuts.
Exactly. Yeah. Crazy.
Take another short break from the conversation with Luke just to tell you a little bit what's going on in the background. As many of you know who follow Up My Hockey, I've shared the idea that Up My Hockey is growing, and that I just made my first new hire a few months ago. Michelle has come on board to support specifically the Facebook group for first and foremost, and has also helped me with getting all the questions answered about the Peak Potential Project and getting people enrolled in the right groups and getting them signed up for the proper program that suits their kid the best. And she's been an absolute great asset for me. And one of the things that I've asked her to do is to arrange all these testimonials that I have. So I know that I share them sometimes on the podcast, one-offs or reviews here and there. But I mean, we've had over 200 players now graduate the Peak Potential Hockey Project. And I can't remember one athlete not gaining something of immense value from participating in the program. And why am I telling you that? Is because there is so many testimonials that people have given, that have offered, that have done on their own, free will, just wanting to share. And I haven't really done anything with them. Like I've read a couple online. I have posted a couple on the Peak Potential page, information page on my website. But there's really I should be using them more, just in the fact of the credibility of what it is that is actually happening at Up My Hockey. And I was honestly overwhelmed the other day when I asked Michelle to put them together, because we're talking pages upon pages of players telling their story about what an impact mindset and mental training has made on their game. And not only on their game, but on their personal life, on their development as human beings, which is what I'm so passionate about here at Up My Hockey. So as we speak, Michelle is putting together one document with everybody's story, with everybody's version of how this has helped them and being around Up My Hockey. So I can share it. I mean, it's something that's great when an academy reaches out to me, or an association or something, or I reach out to them, and I can share this laundry list of people that have been impacted by the program. So I'm super excited to see it. Really overwhelmed. I'm very humbled by by how many people that we've been able to impact. It's so rewarding. And I just thought I would share one. It's on page 1 here. I'm not sure how Michelle has organized these specifically, but a boy a young man that's been working with me for a while now, who I want to celebrate in a bigger capacity, because we've been together for a couple years, and he just signed his commitment letter with Drumheller of the AJHL. It's the Alberta Junior Hockey League. He has aspirations to play D1 college hockey, and I'm going to do my best to support his dreams and get him there. He's an intellectual kid. He's a hard worker. He gets better every day. That's his mentality, and he's been an honor to work with. And I just want to share his testimonial for his time together with me and with the program. He writes, Jason provided me with mindset tools and techniques which allowed me to perform at my best. With increased performance came increased confidence, which then enhanced my consistency, which then aided my confidence. This perpetuated cycle has 10x'd my development. Devin Winder. So, I mean, we've heard, I thought this was an appropriate one just because, one, it was on first page, and I read that word confidence twice. And if you've been listening to this conversation with Luke Toporowski, how many times has he mentioned confidence? And it's that huge word for athletes, and their ability to play at their peak potential is the level of confidence that they are exuding, that they are playing with. And Devin here talks about how he was able to create a cycle which increased his confidence. And that's exactly what I try and help players to do. To understand the different ways to develop confidence, to understand different ways to keep confidence, and to actually have a program, a systematic program, a way of practicing, a way of playing, a way of living that continually refreshes that fire and completely builds from one day to the next. So that's what Devin is speaking to here. That is what Luke has been trying to find. Looks like he's been doing a good job of doing it. But confidence is the key. It's the big C word. And if you can find ways to create it, to cultivate it, to keep it, you are doing a good job. So if you're an athlete out there and you are looking for the keys to confidence, you want the keys to the car that are going to run down the highway at full speed, then perhaps an Up My Hockey program is something you want to look at. And if not, that's all good too. But every time I talk to these players, the mental game, the mindset aspect of players is becoming much more recognizable, and it's becoming much more. What is it? It's more people are doing it. Pros are doing it. Amateur athletes are doing it. It's kind of becoming more mainstream. And so if you're not in it yet, you should be, because you are missing that competitive advantage. So thank you, Devin, for sharing that. Best of luck to him this summer. I know he's working his tail off right now, and he has a big development camp and main training camp ahead of him, and I'm sure he'll do great there. And to everyone else, hope your summer training is going fantastic as well, and you are doing things that other people aren't. Really, that's one of the big keys here, remember, and something that I work with my athletes on is, yes, we have to bring it to our workouts. We definitely need to bring it. That intentionality, the deliberateness, the attitude that you can bring to those sessions matters. Absolutely. You want to think of yourself as an absolute warrior when you're in there and you're getting stuff done. But on the other side of that, every competitive hockey player right now is working out. Right? Every competitive hockey player right now that wants a job that you want is also working out. So if that is all you are doing, are you actually gaining ground on those in front ahead of you, and are you actually separating the gap on those who are behind you? I don't think so. So when I'm working with players, remember, we're talking about standards all the time. Where is your opportunity right now to add something to your program? What can you add here in the next 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks before the season starts that's going to give yourself the edge? Is that something else, a skill piece that you can add? Is it a strength component? Is it a flexibility component? Is it a mental component that you haven't explored yet that you can add to your off-season game that's going to give you that competitive advantage you're looking for? So I challenge you there. Challenge everyone out there to continue to push your own limits. Luke speaks about it here in the interview, about now it's time to really get to work, that you have these little moments in time where, yeah, now I really got to go to work. Now I really need to elevate. Find ways for yourself where you're elevating before the environment tells you you have to. when you're preparing for what's to come in a way that no one else is, you are going to arrive more prepared and with more C-word confidence. So there you have it. Let's get back to the interview with Luke Toporowski. So you mentioned your fight, so I think that's great. I didn't want to. I wanted this to be about you and not about your dad. But I think that's a great time to bring that back in because I love the psychology of the game, as you can see. Like that's one of the things that I think is cool. And for a player following in a hockey family's footsteps, you know, like there might be an idea of who you're supposed to be because of what your dad was or your uncles were, and for those of you who don't know who Kerry Toporowski was, he had 505 minutes and penalties one year in the WHL. And that was without 10-minute misconduct count.
I was just going to say that's no majors.
Yeah, that's all. That's no misconducts. That's all major penalties.
Yeah,
and twos, right? So, like, if you do the math on that, that's an insane amount of times where he had to throw gloves, and was one of the most feared guys in WHL, and won Memorial Cup, and anyways, like definitely a legend. But so for you coming up now in that, and looks like you've always been more of a skill guy. Has that been a part of your DNA to have some sandpaper and some grit, or was that something you tried to stay away from and carve your own identity, or how did that all work for you?
Maybe definitely in between the whistles. I like to be like a hard-nosed player, like mix that skill with a little bit of grit. I mean, go hard to the net, go in the corners, not be afraid of that sort of stuff. But I mean, I'm on a good day, 5'11". So, I mean, fight the other stuff after the whistles and fighting and whatnot just never was my game. I grew up a forward. I grew up scoring goals, and I just loved that part of the game so much. And I always worked at that part. I was always stick handling in the garage. I was always shooting pucks, and never really was big enough even to bring that part into my game. And I had 3 fights in the WHL and then 1 fight this year. So, I mean, it just never was part of my game. But like you said, the sandpaper in between the whistles and stuff like that, like, yeah, that is part of my game. Like getting under team's skin or the other team's skin, or just, going hard to the net, not being afraid of battles and cross checks and you name it. But
right. Because there's a toughness to that. I talk about that all the time, right? I mean, you have to be prepared to go to some of those areas because it could hurt, not with maybe a fist to your chin, but I mean, just the fact that, it's dangerous sometimes out there, right? Yeah. And to have that mindset that you can go in. Did Topper, your dad was there any type of, did he have any non-negotiables as a parent? I mean, obviously with his type of lineage and what he did, I'm sure he didn't want you to be a pugilist, or maybe he did, maybe he didn't. But did he have some standards for you in your game that were just kind of, that you had to bring every night, whether you were a goal scorer or not?
Well, to touch on that, he didn't. He never. I don't think he wanted me ever to play his role, play his game. I mean, he always says he had to do it to keep his job and to get that paycheck. But I mean, yeah, he would hold me accountable in my games. And I always knew if I didn't play good, because he didn't let me know. He just gave me the silent treatment. And I think sometimes the silent treatment was even worse than getting ripped. And I always, up until now, I mean, I always know if I don't play a great game, because I won't get a text after the game or whatnot. So, I mean, he's one of my biggest supporters and one of my biggest critics. So, I mean, it's a good balance.
Yeah, that is good. Did you, I should touch just on the trade. I mean, getting traded there, I don't know if you were involved in it. I mean, you're an older guy and, Camp was going for a run. Were you blindsided by that at the junior level? And what was that like, shifting teams when you probably thought you were going to retire a Chief from junior hockey?
I mean, 20 years old, playing in Spokane, we weren't good. I mean, we were bottom of the barrel. So actually in October, I requested a trade. November, I requested a trade, and just kind of stayed on them about that, because you have to be selfish in your game too. And I recognized that Chiefs weren't good. It would be perfect to be a Chief for life. But if I wanted to move on to pro hockey, I had to get onto a better team, because we weren't doing well in Spokane. I wasn't confident at all, just because we kept losing. Maybe the puck wasn't going in the net because we weren't a great team and whatnot. So yeah, I did request a trade, and I was on them about it up until the trade deadline, and finally at the trade deadline, we got a trade to go through to Kamloops, and I mean that was probably one of the key parts of my hockey career, was getting up to Kamloops and getting on a good team and just being in a winning environment again.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at your stat line there, 20 goals, 22 games. That must have been a hell of a lot of fun, and you had a good run in the playoffs there too. Just a breath of fresh air, better players. Like what did that and was that really like the key? Do you think for getting that AHL deal done?
I don't think I would have got the deal I got if I was playing in Spokane at all, because I wasn't. I mean, I was over a point per game playing in Spokane at 20 years old, but 20 years old, if you want to get a pro deal, you gotta be more than over a point per game. And so I kind of self-assessed, and I said, this is what I got to do for my game, and getting up to Kamloops was a key part, because like you said, I played with great players. I mean, I played on the line with Logan Stankov and Kaden Bankier, which are 2 drafted players, 2 signed players, 2 World Junior players, and just being on the line with those 2 guys really helped me get back to the game that I knew I could play at the junior level, especially. So, I mean, yeah, that was a key part. And then thought maybe I could get an NHL deal, and only got an NHL deal. But, I mean, can't be entitled, and just got to keep working. And then,
you got that NHL deal now,
yeah.
Mark.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
How did that work? I think there's probably a lesson there. Like, was that a tough walk down the hallway for you to knock on the door and say, hey, this is what I'd like? Or did you feel pretty comfortable in your own skin by that point?
I mean, by that point, I was there 4.5 years. I had worked my ass off every day. I mean, I knew I could. I knew I kind of had the status to maybe walk into the GM's office and say, hey, I got to be moved. Like, this isn't for me. This is like, you guys could maybe get an asset in the trade, a pick to use in the future. Like, this could help both sides.
Yeah.
So I was comfortable doing that. And it was kind of frustrating because I went in October, November, and nothing got done until middle of January. So I was going in there probably bi-weekly, just, hey, is anything coming together and whatnot. So I was pretty comfortable doing it. And everybody knew everybody knew I wanted out, but I was still coming to the rink every day, having a good attitude, working hard. And while I was there, I was still putting in my time. But I mean, I was comfortable with asking out.
Awesome. How important was it for you to put that, I mean, to be the character guy that you are and show up there and not let everybody know that you were disappointed kind of internally with the lack of movement?
Yeah, I mean, I think as an older guy, well, it's just like in pro hockey, an older guy being good to the younger guys. I mean, as an older guy, maybe wanting out of Spokane, I like I said, I still showed up, and I still tried to play my A game and be good to the younger guys and have those junior parties and whatnot, be a good 20-year-old guy and show the 16, 17-year-old guys the ropes and whatnot, not getting too caught up in the trade stuff. But I handled that stuff separately from the rest of the guys, and I'd go in on my own time, and when maybe everybody had left the rink, and then I'd go check. So I made sure it wasn't a distraction. We also had our captain traded that year too, Jack Finley, who was a 19-year-old, and I mean, obviously he was a drafted player. He wanted out, I think.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was kind of the theme for us older guys wanting to extend our careers.
Good for you. That's a mature thing. I'm glad it worked out so well for you there. Must have been nice to hear that song, Taking Care of Business, being played because you scored instead of listening to it being scored against.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a great, cool song.
So you got time for 2 more?
Yeah.
Beauty.
Totally.
Well, the one thing you talked about it earlier, and I would like just to hear your I don't know how you deal with it, because that is something that I don't relate to with the younger crowd, and that is the access to social media and, you know, the life of on your phone, right? And potentially someone telling you how great you are whenever you want to read it, or maybe someone telling you how horrible you are whenever you want to read it, you know, and all the implications that come with that. Not to mention even maybe social behavior, right? You know, like going out, thinking about, I mean, this might be on camera, but from somebody. Like, how do you handle that? How do teams handle that now? And what is your interaction with your phone?
Well, that's a good question, because actually this summer I've been deleting it off my phone quite often, just because I mean, it's the summertime anyway. I want to get off my phone and I want to be focused on friends, family that I don't see during the season. But it causes stress. It causes anxiety, because you're on your Twitter, Instagram, and you're seeing signings or like other guys having success and whatnot. And then you start to doubt yourself and maybe have bad mental health. And so every time I got to that point, I would just delete it off my phone. I mean, I would delete Instagram, I would delete Twitter, I delete Facebook, you name it. And then it kind of helped me get a reset. And then maybe a week later, I would re-download it and get in touch with buddies or see what everybody's up to. So I think social media is great. It's if you use it in a good way, to connect with friends and whatnot. But it can also, like you said, you can read some bad stuff about you and see stuff maybe you don't want to see. And I got to that point this summer where I was kind of struggling about it mentally and about all the signings, because I knew I could get an NHL deal, and I was seeing other guys get NHL deals, but it wasn't happening for me yet. So I just had to delete the stuff because I was thinking about it too much and it was affecting my day-to-day life. So, I mean, I did delete stuff or I deleted social media, and now I have it again, and it's good to connect. And then the other part of that side part of social media is, like you said, being careful when you go out, because I mean, everything's on camera now, or being careful with what you text your buddies or Snapchat your friends, because I mean, with everything going on right now, you got to be careful. And I think it's just, it's a good reminder for us that we are in a stage where people might be out to get us maybe a little bit more than just the average citizen. But I mean, it's a good platform to be on.
That's mature, man. Like really, really mature points there. And I think you used the word mental health a couple times, and I'll also use like the time management side. Like, and this is, I'm an adult, you're an adult, right? I'm a 47-year-old adult, you're a 22-year-old adult. Like, there's only so many hours in a day. And I know the life of a pro hockey player, you know, I mean, you have your work time, but there is some free time, right? I mean, you can do some stuff with. And again, I didn't have the access to the phone, but I can catch myself, like, not only using the phone, yes, positively, but also just letting it use me at times, right? Yeah. Like I'm not using it; it's using me, and I'm just like lost in the scroll or in the feed or whatever, right? And like, speak to that, like, and that's one thing I try and talk to my players about now, because if you can buy back some of your time, and if you have the ability, the professionalism to use your phone, like, to serve you, like, again, with those all-star thoughts and like what is in your feed and what are you looking at and like how are you using your phone? I think it can be a tool, but it's a very, very fine balance there, isn't it?
There is, like, just like you said, getting lost in the scroll. Like, I'll be on my phone sitting on the couch and 20 minutes will go by and I'm like, well, what am I doing? Right. So I just instantly delete like this stuff off my phone. I'm like, okay, I'm not downloading it for like a week. Like, you just need cleanse, because I mean, it is an addiction. Like, and whoever has created all the stuff to keep us hooked into the screens for hours in the day they're pretty intelligent, because it works. And but I think, like you said, being responsible and being mature to use it in a good way. I mean, I've found skill drills that I can use when I'm just out on the ice by myself. I've found skill drills on Instagram that I use. I've found workouts that I use on social media. So like, using it in that aspect, it's awesome. It's a great tool because people put all their stuff out there. but then like you said, there is the other side of getting lost in the scroll and it's sucking out your time of your day.
You know what you might use, and something I've used with some of my guys before, especially like, we're competitive beasts, right? You're a professional hockey player. There's got to be a high level of compete in you. The people you talked about, like the design manufacturers of these things, like what they're actually doing, right, is like they're buying your attention. Like that's the number one commodity, right? Like, and when you do get lost in it, they win. Right. They've absolutely won the game. So when you gamify like your screen time, if you can think of it as a win-loss scenario and you just lost, like I think that kind of sometimes that helps guys. You know what I mean? Like
totally. Have you watched the Social Dilemma?
No.
I mean, that's if you want to.
Well, that's the Facebook one, isn't it?
Well, Social Network is the Facebook one, but Social Dilemma, it's on Netflix. It's a documentary, and it's about like. It's an inside look at like what they do to keep us hooked. The notifications, like just they'll pop something on your phone that you want to see, that you want to click on, and then you click on it and then you're stuck for 25 minutes. So, I mean, if you get time to watch,
I will.
That documentary, Social Dilemma, it is scary, but it's interesting because it'll kind of wake you up. And
it's informational, I'm sure educational. Right now you can start making it. Once the smoke clears, you can make some new choices, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And one of the things I use with my players too, so that 20 minutes that you recognize, I think that's such a great number for whatever reason, because who doesn't get lost and escape on their phone for 20 minutes a day, right? Yeah. Or on a screen of any type for that matter. Yeah. That 20 minutes at the end of a year, like if you were to capitalize and like regain that 20 minutes, that's like 3.5 weeks of work, like 8-hour work days. Can you imagine though? Like if you put that into like whatever, your toe drag?
Yeah, 100%. Or like a quick release or lunges or anything.
Yeah, anything. Like 20 minutes of dedicated, deliberate practice that you have in a day that it's been squandered doing something aimless that you're never going to get, you never gain anything from, and actually put it towards your craft. Like 20 minutes. Like, I don't know. I just love that. That's so impactful because it really starts to like put time in a capsule, and especially when you're playing the long game on something like hockey, right? Like where we're trying to get better and we're trying to do this, like 3.5 work weeks is 20 minutes a day. That's bonkers to me.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, you can be stick handling for 20 minutes.
Yeah. I call them 20-minute monsters with the guys that I'm working with, like to try and actually capture that 20 minutes and to use it in your strength and weakness builder, and works for pro guys too, right? Or even junior guys. You're at the rink, you have access to ice, you have this time. It's like, where do you using 20 minutes for Luke Toporowski, right? If I was working with you, right? Like, how are we going to use this? We're going to use 20 minutes a day, dedicated, deliberate practice for you to get better quicker than somebody else. It makes a big difference. Huge difference. Okay, last one. So I said 2. So that was a long-winded one on social media. Thanks for your insight there. The NHL contract, we got to dig into that a little bit. So, I mean, you're on an AHL deal. You want to be an NHL player. No one puts on their skates at 8 to be an AHL player. I mean, I played more AHL games than NHL games, so I'm not downing the AHL. I mean, tons of respect for the AHL. But where you want to be is in the big show. So what was that like? Was it a 1-year deal that you had at the AHL level? And how did you think that transition was going to work? Was Boston always in the mix? Like, talk to me about all that.
Yeah. So going back to my 20-year-old year, I mean, I had like you said, I had a good time in Kamloops, put up the points, played well, got an AHL deal. In my head, I was like, I still feel like I can do more. I still feel like I can get that NHL deal. And I mean, had a good start to my pro career. I mean, had a good pro career or good pro season for my rookie season. Had the ups, had the downs, and had some looks. I mean, my agent was getting in contact with me, like so-and-so was interested in an offer sheet. And whatnot. But Boston ultimately had my rights, even though I was on an NHL deal. Teams could offer sheet me, and that's kind of how the NHL deal came up, because Minnesota gave me an offer sheet, and since I'm Boston's property, technically, they get the right to match. So they get 72 hours, and they took the 72 hours, and they came back and said they were going to match. So, I mean, they were kind of forced into the NHL deal, but I'm grateful that Minnesota gave me the offer sheet, and I'm grateful that Boston matched, because I mean, they treated me nothing but great my first year, and I'm just excited to get back and have that NHL deal to go into this season.
Good for you. So
but it
Christmas
wasn't
card for Billy Guerin, I guess, eh?
What's that?
Christmas card and a bottle of whiskey for Billy Guerin?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, so what was that? Was that a pretty celebratory day moment? Like, how you guys handle that in the Toporowski
well,
household?
my agent, like, he would text me like I would say maybe once a month, like, hey, just had a conversation with so and so. We'll let you know next week if they come back with an offer. And that just kept happening. And he was like, fuck, we're just not getting the offer at the end of the day. And randomly one day I left my phone at home, and I forget where we went. We were out running errands, and I came back and I just checked my phone, and my agent had texted me. He tried calling me. He said, give me a call when you can. Have an NHL offer. We need to talk about it. And my heart dropped. I was like, what the, like, this is insane.
Yeah.
And I instantly texted my brother. And yeah, it was cool. But you still had to wait the 72 hours, because you didn't know who you were going to be with. But yeah, we celebrated after that 72 hours was up, and after Boston match, and I signed. And it happened to be on a Friday, so work week's kind of over, and you can celebrate with some pops. But yeah, it was an awesome weekend.
So you knew. So Minnesota couldn't rescind it at that point. Like, once it's out, it's out. So you knew you were going to have an NHL deal. It was just a matter of if.
Yeah,
at that point, Boston was the only team that could step in, right?
Yes, correct. And that was kind of, I mean, those 3 days were the longest 3 days of ever, because I was like, what's going on here? I was texting my agent, has Boston matched yet? Are they going to match? So yeah, it was fun time though.
Well, cool. Well, good for you. I mean, and to your point, like, I mean, and just speaking, this is just me from an experiential standpoint, like, the environment that you have there that you're glowingly speaking about at the AHL level, like, it's obviously not guaranteed the next place you go, right? Like,
yeah, exactly.
Sometimes guys get a little bit like, I don't know, like, they don't, like, the grass is always greener isn't necessarily the case. So I'm glad you found a place that appreciates you, that you appreciate them, you know, and I think that's a great spot to grow your career from. So congrats.
Thank you.
Yeah, awesome. Well, man, you were a fantastic guest. I really appreciate you coming on and being able to share your story. There's so many great lessons in there for, you know, like my son, anyone at any point in the game that's, you know, trying to be a pro hockey player. It sounds like you're super grounded, and you're doing the right things, and pay attention to the details. And like you said earlier, that hopefully the game will take care of you if you take care of it.
Exactly. Right? That's the mindset you gotta have.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, man, we'll let you go. And once again, really appreciate your time, and thanks for sharing all your little jewels of wisdom there.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you once again for sticking around for the entire conversation, episode 115 with Luke Toporowski. Luke, thank you so much. You're a rock star, man. I wish you nothing but the best. Just getting that hour and 20 minutes with you. I can tell you're somebody that I would want to have in my locker room. I can tell you're somebody that is taking care of the details and have a team first mentality, but recognize the individual ism of what it is that you are doing and trying to accomplish. And the amount of times that you talked about gratitude and used gratitude is really lessons for everyone else out there listening. Boy, it just takes care of the passion piece. It takes care of the hard times. It makes it bigger than you when you're using gratitude, and it just keeps you on the straight and narrow. It keeps you doing the right things, and it sounds like Luke has got a lot of those things right, which is being acknowledged in the fact that the Minnesota Wild wanted him. Were prepared to write an offer sheet for his rights, which maybe the Boston Bruins already knew they wanted him, but they were forced to acknowledge that they also wanted his rights, and now he has the NHL deal that he wanted on a 2-year term, and of course, right, the work is just beginning, as we've said here numerous numerous times on this episode in particular that, Luke is in the gym. He's trying to get stronger. He's recognizing that there are men now that he's playing against, and it's a different level of compete and toughness and strength. And obviously at the AHL level, as great as that league is, it's not the NHL, and it is even going to amp up there. So best of luck to Luke and everyone who is in the AHL right now. Like I have a super soft spot for the guys that make the journey to the show that direction, that have to earn their spot. With Luke being on an AHL deal and earning his spot to even be on that team, like he didn't have to make the Providence Bruins last year. Like he earned his spot against other guys on NHL deals, against other guys from the East Coast who wanted to come up and have the spot, and then he earned his minutes throughout the year, and now he's earned his NHL deal, and he's going to earn every one of his minutes again, and who knows where he's going to end up here in the fall. I know he's working his tail off, but for all you guys out there fighting that fight, stay grounded. Remember why you do it, as we said here, and remember what it's all about. And it should make it easier. It's going to be hard. It is hard. It's meant to be hard. Embrace the grind, embrace the struggle, and enjoy all the great things that come with being a pro hockey player. And treat your teammates right, and good things will happen to you. As Luke said, the game will take care of you if you take care of it at some point. It doesn't owe you anything. Remember that. It does not owe you anything, but it will shine on you if you take care of it. So keep doing those little things, Luke out there and everyone else out there fighting the good fight. Keep doing the little things, and I wish you the best. Till next time, play hard, keep your head up.